Welcome back, everyone. So good to be here with you today on this Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday episode, where we are going to be talking about the 3 things to never do while fasting. This is extremely important because intermittent fasting is such a popular nutrition diet topic right now. So it's my job once a week, every other week or so, to provide you with more tips to better be able to do intermittent fasting. So while I do believe that the closest thing we have right now to the fountain of youth is intermittent fasting, there are so many ways to also do it wrong. Remember, if it can be done correctly, it can also typically be done incorrectly, and minor tweaks make all the difference. So for example, a lot of people always write in, they say, hey, I can't take zinc, it makes me nauseous. And I say, yes, it will make almost anyone nauseous if you take it away from food, or at the beginning of the meal, or at the end of the meal. Zinc should be packaged, should be swallowed mid-meal. And that should get rid of the nausea for 99% of people. So, it's again, zinc is not the problem, right? Intermittent fasting is not the problem. It's intermittent fasting done incorrectly that's causing all these hormonal issues, digestive issues, metabolic issues, etc. So what I want to do is just simply share with you 3 big ones to, no matter who you are, don't do this, right? And I'm going to give you the science and the reasons why. So let's dive into it. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm also going to link up past shows to go more in depth on all 3 of these. So if you're kind of new to intermittent fasting or new to any of these 3 do not do's, definitely head on over to stevencabral.com/2105. All right, let's dive in. The first one is this. This is a big one. Do not eat too close to bed. So a lot of people are on a 1 meal a day diet, OMAD diet. Please check out stevencabral.com/2105 for my podcast on the OMAD diet, pros and cons. So here's the thing. And I'm going to be talking about the 1 meal a day, which is shortened to OMAD, and point number 3. So stay with me here. But here's the thing. A lot of people are waiting to do 1 meal towards the end of the day. They get homework late. They get home from the gym late, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're eating within an hour or 2 of bedtime. If you do that, you are going to dramatically, negatively affect your sleep. The closer you eat to bedtime, the more the food stays in your stomach. Digestion is weaker later at night. Even if you take enzymes, even if you're drinking ginger tea or a little bit of apple cider vinegar, or you're taking betaine HCl, whatever it might be, digestion is a little bit weaker. Okay? Hormones change that. So cortisol's dropping down, melatonin's starting to rise, body's going into more of that parasympathetic sleep-based mode, not parasympathetic, which is needed for digestion, but more, okay, energy is calming down so that we can let the internal organs and the body itself begin more of a detoxification-based process called autophagy if we are not eating. So here's the thing though, when we eat too close to bed, and you can test this yourself, remember, I try to provide unbiased information to you, but I always give you ways to test it as well. So try stopping dinner by 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock one night. Then try eating dinner 1 hour before bed. Okay, you might need a couple days, like 3 days to do this to actually test your numbers, right? So that's just not one off day, but use something like an Oura Ring to test your sleep and look at your deep sleep numbers, because I'm guaranteeing you that they're going to be lower on the nights that you eat closer to bed. And you're probably not going to hit that 90 minutes of deep sleep, 2 hours of REM sleep. Okay, really important. You probably won't see the same drop in body temperature, and you might not see the same drop in heart rate as well. That's super important. Remember, your body needs to literally almost like hibernate overnight in bed. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you want to shut down non-essential systems while you're sleeping. Your body shouldn't be digesting food in your stomach while you're sleeping. It moves through the intestines, yes, but it should not be digesting food in your stomach. And since it takes about 3 hours for a big meal minimum to get out of your stomach, if you're having especially a lot of animal-based protein in it, you want to give yourself that time before bed. All right, so that's point number 1. Again, it affects your sleep, so important. Number 2, just because you have reduced your eating window to 4 hours or 8 hours does not mean that you can eat anything if you keep your calories low enough. Let me put this a couple different ways, right? So a lot of people on a 1 meal a day diet or 2 meal a day diet, they're seeing results. And part of that is from a calorie reduction as well. And they're following just a macro split, certain amount of fat, certain amount of protein, certain amount of carbs each day. And I did a podcast on this too called If It Fits Your Macros. So we'll try to link that one up as well. The problem with If It Fits Your Macros, it's a big issue. Let me give you a couple examples here from the real world. Weight Watchers was popular for many, many years. Still popular in some parts of the world. And it does a points-based system. But the points-based system is essentially based on calories. I mean, it really is. It's based now maybe a little bit more on macros. And carbs are always bad in these programs, right? So when we look at that, we're saying, okay, if it fits your macros, it's good to go. And again, Weight Watchers made this pretty popular. They said, well, popcorn before bed is okay because it's so low in calories unless you add butter or other things to it. The problem with that is that a lot of these popcorns have a whole lot of artificial based ingredients in them, or they have a whole lot of oxidized polyunsaturated hydrogenated vegetables added to them. So it's like, that's not healthy, right? And again, a lot of people on this, if it fits your macros, they literally may have like a Snickers bar, or they might have some, all these healthy ice creams, right? These are not healthy, right? Well, what happened to the foods that we know are longevity foods? What happens to the brightly colored fruits and vegetables, right? Even if you're only doing veggies, well, where do the veggies fit in? That's very, very important to look at this. So just because your diet fits your macros, or it's helping you to lose weight, it does not mean that it's healthy, right? It doesn't mean that it's healthy. And I'm going to explain this even more in depth for the 1 meal a day. But again, this is for people doing fasting until lunch and maybe having a lunch and a dinner. Are you able to get all your micronutrients in a day? And that's what I'm going to get to next. But I just want you to say is just because it fits your macros or you are losing weight does not mean that this is healthy, right, for the long run. All right. Point number 3 is this: believing that 1 meal a day is healthy in any way, shape, or form. 1 meal a day is not the healthiest way to eat. Now, health and results are not synonymous. They don't necessarily go together, right? So, for example, let's say that you drop your 3 meals a day and you go to 1. You may very well lose weight, right? Have a little bit more energy, at least in the beginning, and get rid of a lot of your digestive issues. And I've explained that on previous shows. I actually explained it quite a bit last week on bloating and gas versus food sensitivities. And I explained it in depth on why fasting reduces bloating and digestive issues. That was episode 2090. So I'd love you to listen to episode 2090 and 2091 if you haven't. If you stay away from any type of protein, heavy protein, a lot of people don't eat animal-based protein or fish because it makes them bloated. Now, if you don't eat animal protein or fish for vegan and spiritual-based reasons, I'm okay with that. But don't stop eating it because it causes bloating. That's a digestive issue. And then a lot of people don't eat fruit or they don't eat certain carbs because it causes bloating. Again, that's a digestive issue, right? Nothing wrong with the foods themselves. It's a digestive issue. Don't let anybody confuse you and try to tell you otherwise. I share the science with you on last week's shows. Okay, so here's the thing though. Again, let's say you're losing the weight, a little bit more energy. Again, like I said, at least initially, those 2 things will happen, and less digestive issues. Okay, there are reasons for all of those. But that doesn't mean that you are healthier. And I want to explain why. There is literally no human civilization, population, tribe that has ever been studied or found that has ever lived a long life, most centurions, versus having 1 meal a day. Most of those had 3 meals a day. They had a little bit when they woke up for breakfast, right? They might even have a little snack, and then a main meal towards that lunch afternoon as well. The longest lived people have never just eaten 1 meal a day. And it's interesting to look at that. And there are many reasons why. And I go through that on my 1 meal a day podcast. So I'd love you to look at that. But you have to understand is that, again, initially, you can see a lot of weight loss and you might see some body transformation. The problem is you are dramatically lowering your metabolic rate over time. And you can talk with a lot of people and you see this. And again, we have a very large private practice, so we get to see these things over and over and watch how they play out. So at least initially, get a little boost. Why? You have more energy because there's no energy going towards digestion. And when 30% of your energy goes towards digestion, well, you get 30% back. Fantastic. And then if you have a meal at the end of your day and you're tired after the meal, well, you're going to bed anyways, right? So people are like, oh, it works great. Problem is, how do you get in 7 to 9 cups, 7 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables every day? Can't mix fruit with your dinner. That doesn't digest very well, right? And let's say, okay, well, I'm not going to do fruit anyways. Let's just say you're doing vegetables. How are you going to get in 7 cups of vegetables? Right? I mean, that's way too much to digest. Even if you could, it's too much. How are you going to get in 30 to 35 grams of fiber, right? And how are you going to get in about half your body weight in protein per day? Or at least 0.8 grams per kilogram, which is still kind of close to half your body weight in protein per day. So if you're 160 pounds, you're going to eat 80 grams of protein at that one meal? I mean, that's insane. You should not do that. It's not even about absorption and digestion. I mean, but it's a big part of it is that there's no way that you're going to break that down well enough and be able to utilize it better than you could over 2 to 3 meals, right? And then also healthy fats. Okay, that's an easy one to get at one meal. There's no doubt about it. So I wouldn't focus as much on that, but I'd say, how are you going to get all the other nutrition? If your daily caloric rate is 2,000 calories, you're going to eat a 2,000 calorie meal? That's not the best thing, especially before bed. Now, if you were to say, I'm going to have my 1 meal a day at lunch, that's a whole lot better than having it at night. Still not the best because you're going 24 hours, which is going to start to affect your hormones. Definitely going to affect cortisol levels. And for women, definitely going to affect thyroid levels as well for about probably 9 out of 10 women. And again, this is easy enough to test. You can do it for yourself for a while. After a month or so, run the stress, mood, and metabolism test. That's at stephencabral.com/labs. You can run it through us. We open source it, or you can always run it with your local integrative health practitioner. So these are important things. But you have to understand is when you eat, and so what happens with your metabolic rate is over time, it slows. So now you can only eat 1,800 calories a day in order to keep getting results. Then 1,600, then 1,200. And again, we see this all the time in our practice. So how little food you can eat. So now you can eat 1 meal at 1,200 calories. Well, there's no way you're going to be able to get all your nutrition to that. It's just not an ideal way to do it. Plus, as I've said before, your body needs fuel all day long. And you might say, well, I'm just going to have some stored liver glycogen and I'm going to have my fat to tap into. Maybe, maybe not. You don't always get to decide. It depends on how stressed you are. It depends on how active you are. Because if you're active, you're stressed, well, your body's going to be constantly ramping up those adrenals through what's called the HPA axis to signal the adrenals to produce norepinephrine, essentially adrenaline, and cortisol to break down liver glycogen. And if there's no liver glycogen, okay, well, now you just added another greater stress to your body besides the stress hormones you already produced that are going to start breaking down muscle tissue. This is why, unless you're doing resistance training 2 to 3 times a week, a lot of the weight loss that people see on a keto-based diet or a really low-carb diet is actually muscle loss. And I did a podcast on that, and I'll try to link that one up here today. So again, I could go on, but there is no long-term research. There are no long-lived civilizations who eat 1 meal a day. And that's because it's almost physiologically impossible to get all the nutrients you need. And I'm not talking about your macros. Again, those are easy enough to satisfy. I'm talking about your micros as well, your vitamins, your minerals, your omegas, amino acids, etc., that your body needs to run in the long term. 1 meal a day for the short term, not ideal, but your body can get away with it. Long term, not ideal. So hopefully this is helpful. Again, I'm also able and happy to go more in depth on any one of those topics. I know that the 1 meal a day has been popularized by many people. It's gone by all sorts of names, the warrior diet, the OMAD diet, et cetera, et cetera. This is in no way a condemnation of any author or expert out there recommending 1 meal a day. But what I can assure you is this: it is looking at short-term results, but sacrificing long-term health. And that's simply not something I am willing to do for my family, any one of my private practice, any of my friends, and I don't want it for you either. There's a better way to do it. You can get short-term results while also enjoying long-term health and longevity. So hopefully this was helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please do feel free to share the show with anyone you believe it could serve.